Okay, don't go into debt trying to have a big party, save that money for a house, honeymoon, a car, etc.
Yeah.
I think, okay, if you are really financially not in a position to throw a big party, don't.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
I would agree.
Like if you have to, I would argue that it's okay if it's been your dream forever to save up for it and to splurge. But if you are hardcore going into debt, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
That makes me sad to think that there would be people who are really going into debt
Yeah.
paying for our services.
I think if you can't afford to throw a big, huge wedding, more power to you. And I think that's awesome. As someone who is a luxury wedding vendor, I support that. But
We
you
love
shouldn't,
it. Yeah.
we love it, but you shouldn't be going into debt to do it. Like if you can't do it, just don't do it. And that's fine. You can have an amazing wedding on a budget. You should not be putting everything on the credit card and taking out loans or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's kind of hard. And if you've always dreamed of having a really nice wedding, don't let anybody talk you out of it. If the idea of like an elopement just doesn't strike your fancy and you're like, I really, really, really just want like a nice wedding, like you can have a nice wedding. Don't let anybody be like, your house is more important. Because your kid once, you get married once. Celebrate that if you want to celebrate that.
Yep.
Don't let anybody make you feel bad about it. However, if the idea of a wedding stresses you out, or you just aren't jiving with the idea of investing that much money in a day or a weekend, maybe you should be looking at other options. Look at eloping. Look at going to a courthouse and having just like a smaller day. We personally, if we were to redo this is on the record. If we were to have a wedding now, we would rent an Airbnb that's
Yep.
big enough for our families
And has a decent backyard.
and
to
has
throw
a
the wedding
decent
in.
backyard. So it'd probably be a relatively expensive Airbnb. And then we would stay for a weekend and we'd have our families there with us all
Yep.
weekend. We would have pizzas and donuts.
Yep. Pizzas and donuts would be our wedding food.
Yep. And we would just be around the people who matter the most to us in the world, which are our immediate
Yeah.
families. And we would
Overspend on our photographer and videographer,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the one thing I say. You could say your wedding is one day and it goes into the past and you forget it more and more as each day goes on, but you can get a house, a honeymoon, a car, etc. That's going to be more valuable. I would argue that we have gone through many decorating, planning sessions, and wishing that we had good photos to put up on our walls has been like a constant, like, man, I wish we had that.
Yep.
And we don't forget it. So that's the one thing that you will take
Yep.
away, and you need to
Yep.
invest properly
And
into that depending on your budget.
without being like morbid, like your family members are not always going to be around, or
Yeah.
you're going to have distance between you. To like have a day, at least one day, just captured really well so that your relationship dynamic is captured, like that's huge.
Yep.
You can relive your relationship through pictures, through video that's done really well in an intimate setting, and you can have that forever when you're far away from that person, you miss them, or maybe you have a loved one pass away. Like you can relive your relationship with them well after they're gone or you've moved away because of the coverage you get. And that's something that because we also we budget, like we
Yeah.
definitely don't like spending a lot of money, but that's kind of why we're able to be in the business we're in, is we see the value of being able to do people's relationships justice.
And we want to give you that because we didn't
Yep,
have it.
because we know what it's worth. 10 years, 5 years, 6
Yeah.
years later, we know how much we think about how much we would want that. We know that like we think about what we missed out on, and for our siblings who have been married, that's something that we take really seriously. It's just like trying to make sure that they're taken care
Yeah.
of, because there's no shortage of grief that comes with not having
Yeah.
that done well. So on that side of it, we would Airbnb, which probably would be a little expensive. Food, super cheap. We'd keep the guest list small, and then we would just have the best weekend that we could ever have with the people who are closest
Yep.
with us.
That's exactly what we would do.
Yep. And I think that if you don't have the budget to do anything super extravagant, like to me, that's extravagant. Like to me, our idea of a wedding day is extravagant because it has so much of what I want in it, you know?
Yeah.
Like that to me sounds extravagant, but it's not in the grand scheme of weddings.
Yeah.
So if you can't have something super extravagant, look into a different alternative if you still want a wedding. But if the idea makes you really anxious and you don't want it, then maybe save your money. Put that
Yeah.
down payment on a house. Like you also get money at your wedding. People give you
Yeah.
money. We've had couples who at their wedding or after their wedding were able to take a honeymoon that they didn't expect based on people's gifts to them. So just like yeah, they just know that you're going to get some return, a little bit, and but definitely don't go into debt for it.
No,
Don't count
definitely
on it.
not.